Hello and welcome back to the Matchbook Betting Exchange World Cup podcast. It's relentless content coming your way. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined as usual by Adrian, Clarke, Mark O'Hare, and live from Qatar, Miguel Delaney. Miguel, to keep the viewers up to date, what games have you been at? Have you enjoyed it? Has there been many goals? Tell us a little bit about Qatar.
First of all, I have to say it's a strange experience being here. I would go so far as saying that in terms of venue for a World Cup, it's the worst possible venue, and that's mostly because I mean, like what a World Cup is about is basically people coming together. I mean, even in Moscow, say the big thing was kind of when you walk down Nikolskaya Street, people from all over the world. There's no public spaces in Qatar. Also, it's quite expensive, which means many fans haven't travelled. So the only game that felt like an authentic football match, which I was at, was Saudi Arabia Argentina, because loads of Saudi Arabian fans come over the border because it's right beside Qatar and the blockade has now been lifted. And actually, to be fair, a fair few Latin American fans have come, so there a good few Argentinians, and apparently there's 90,000 Mexicans. So I'm seeing Argentina Mexico on Saturday. From the football perspective, it's been good. I mean, from a journalist perspective as well, it's been interesting to work on because there's so much going on. It's such a controversial World Cup anyway, with that throwing up a lot of stories, and the football only added to that. So I've been to 5 games so far in 5 different stadiums. I'll get 7 of the 8 in before the group stage finishes. Although it's not as convenient to move around as they said, because the traffic is so bad. The metro works well, but it doesn't link up all the stadiums. So like for the other one, I was at France, Australia the other night, and there was this ludicrous thing where the metro's a fair bit away, so they had like these buses constantly shuttling people, all the fans, to the metro, but it created these huge queues. So it was kind of unworkable. But yeah, the football has been good. But I've had an average of so people want to bet on this. I've had an average of five goals a game. So I was at the opening game, Ecuador Qatar, England Iran. 8. I was at Saudi Arabia Argentina, another 3. France Australia. So that was the only day I'm doing two games in one day, which was stressful, I have to say. And then I did Spain, Costa Rica, and I'm doing Brazil tonight.
There you go. So Serbia. Maybe we'll get to Brazil, Serbia. The guys have already gotten to Brazil, Serbia. Actually, apologies, but there could be goals in that if you're listening to that before. If you follow the Miguel Delaney, perhaps on his
tomorrow I'm at England, USA, and then Argentina, Mexico. So.
There you go. We'll get the rest of Miguel's games tomorrow when we record. But that could be an angle. Look, we've had worse angles on the show, I assure you that. Before we get into previewing, so we're going to do Friday and Saturday's game. We're taking a break during the Thursday's game. It's hard to keep track of the days. Point you quickly in the way of our current sign-up offer at the moment. And it's proven quite popular for those that have been listening to the podcast a while, perhaps, and want to get involved and set up a matchbook betting exchange account. And to be honest, now is the perfect time given the World Cup markets. We currently have up how liquid those markets are up, not just an hour or two before kickoff, but a couple of days out as well. So it's double the odds on podcast best bets. So that's any of the guys' 3 podcast best bets today, or in any of the shows in the World Cup. You enter the bonus code podcast. New customers only. So you enter the bonus code podcast. It's in the first page when you register. It's very easy to follow. And that's up to £50 in cash as well. And that cash will be paid into your account within 72 hours as well. So enter the bonus code podcast, double the odds on podcast best bets. So check out the guys' podcast bets at the end. And if you are listening to the podcast, something I haven't been mentioned before, timestamps are available in the descriptions for all games if you want to cover one game or whatever you want to do. But yeah, we'll get straight into it, guys. And the first game we're going to cover is Wales versus Iran. It's going to be the Friday morning game at 10 a.m. And we'll take a look at the betting as we currently have it at matchbook.com. You can back Wales at 2.16, Iran 4.2. The draw is available at 3.3. Both teams to score no is favoured in this market at 1.8. Iran are getting half a goal start on the Asian handicap line, and the goal line is 2 goals, slightly shaded towards the over. So, Mark, we'll go to you on this one, I guess. Look, we were predicting Iran to kind of keep it tight and cagey against England. Has the market maybe overreacted a bit, in your opinion, based on that result, as they had playing Wales here on Friday morning?
Yeah, I think not just this game, across the board, really. They've seen massive market reactions to first round games, which is, if we were taking sort of domestic matters at hand, it's kind of a number one rule of betting, really. Don't react massively to just one match. But we've had that so far in this competition. And, Iran, I thought, started the game relatively okay against England. Everything was kind of going to plan until the injury to the goalkeeper, and that disrupted the flow. And I think it just scared the bejesus really out of that Iranian defence really, because they looked very ragged after that and disorganised, and England were very clinical in picking them off and played very, very well and fully deserved their victory. I guess there was a slight concern that perhaps the whole sort of political storm and unrest back home may have played on the players' minds. We saw the players refusing to sing the national anthem, and maybe things got a bit heavy on them. I don't really know, really. But yeah, I mean, Carlos Queiroz also sprang a couple of surprises tactically and selection-wise. He changed system, and he also dropped 2 or 3 players who he anticipated being in that starting 11, and he's been heavily criticised for that. So I am expecting a better Iranian performance against Wales. They are still very strong defensively normally across 90 minutes and very difficult to break down normally. And Wales have had issues against deep line defences in the past. And I think, they've basically got 2 teams here who picked the wrong side and selected the wrong sort of tactical approach in their first matches, because it was a big surprise to see Kiefer Moore left out, and we saw the impact he made in the second half. But Wales didn't create a huge amount from open play. A lot of it was towards Kiefer Moore, Ramsey and Bale. Whilst they combined to win the penalty, they were pretty subdued for the most part against a very sort of physical and energetic American midfield. So expecting similar really from Iran. I think they'll bring the noise. I think we'll have a bit of a tasty game here. I think there could be a few cards with so much at stake. But yeah, I think considering the characteristics of the 2 teams, I can't imagine either team's going to pull away and pull out a comfortable victory, shall we say. So I'm sort of quite happy to be on the side of Iran here, plus half a goal at 1.85. I don't see this as being a gimme for Wales, and the price has kind of contracted quite a lot in the last week. And I think it's probably wrong to overreact to some of these early matches in the competition. So I know I'm going to be on my own in this in sort of supporting the underdogs, but I would not be surprised to see a 0-0 or a 1-1 kind of here.
Yeah, Adrian, I'll throw that trace straight over to you. And I think one of my favorite things of the podcast, you guys don't know this, is when you're both at completely different ends of the scale. And normally I get to decide, which I won't this time. But Adrian, take it away. Why Wales are the bet here?
I do understand Mark's points there. I really do. And I don't think there'll be a lot in the game. I really don't. I don't think we're going to see Iran collapse again. Wales don't have the attacking options that England have, do they? They're not in the same league, really, in terms of what they can produce firepower-wise. So I do think it'll be a closer game, and I see the logic of Mark's selection. But based on what I have seen with my own eyes, I think that Iran did look distracted, didn't look hugely motivated about that first game. Maybe the protest was on their minds. I think that was an issue, and it might be an ongoing issue, because what they did is likely it has potential to cause them and their families massive problems back home. That's not the way to prepare for a football match. Full of admiration for the stance they took. Absolutely superb. But in terms of mentally getting themselves ready for a World Cup match, and now a second one, I don't think that's easy. Not ideal at all. They were also absolutely dreadful at defending crosses. They looked small. Don't know what's going to happen with the keeper, obviously, whether the guy comes back in or not. But I don't think he will be allowed to, will he? So they'll have the same guy.
He's been training in a mask, so I think they're anticipating him playing.
Okay. Well, look, we don't know how good he is because he wasn't on long enough. But as a team, they defended badly from corners, free kicks, any cross that went in the box. And this is what Wales will do. They'll pepper it. They'll have to, won't they? And you have to start Kiefer Moore, who almost scored, didn't he, with that header against America. I think he can cause massive problems for Iran in the game. So that's why I lean towards Wales. Wales didn't create much. That is true. Bale was pretty poor, wasn't he? And Ramsey didn't offer a lot. But at the other end of the pitch, even though people were lauding America's performance, they scored from their only shot on target. And USA only mustered 6 over the course of that 90 minutes. So in that sense, Wales will feel they can handle Iran. So obviously Taremi offers a threat. That's an issue. He looks sharp, but I think because of the Iranian fragilities in the air and mentally, and also Wales with the momentum of that second half performance and knowing England are coming, they have to go out and win this match. I think we'll see a really purposeful Wales performance, and I think they'll shade a tight game. That's my prediction.
Yeah, Miguel, I think for a lot of people, substitutions have been key in this World Cup, and I don't think there's been an impact like Kiefer Moore coming on at halftime in that Wales game and just giving them a presence up front, and suddenly it was a completely different half. Or you're kind of thinking they can keep that going if Kiefer Moore starts perhaps this Friday.
Yeah, that'd be where my thinking would come from the game. I think I agree Wales were poor first half, but now they've got that impetus and momentum, and we've seen from previous Welsh campaigns that has carried them quite through. They're a squad quite like that. I mean, obviously one of the mid-tier teams, but it's one of those kind of intangibles of a tournament that definitely has a tangible effect, which is the kind of the spirit of a camp and how that can take on. And Wales definitely have that to go with their experience. So it's why I think they're in a good place mentally ahead of the Iranian game. But it's just, completely agree what the lads were saying on Iran. I think that's a team in disarray. Of course, we can't say for certain how much the situation in Iran affects them. But if you think, even if you stand back from, they're under immense scrutiny. Like the state is obviously focusing a lot on the camp, given the eyes of the world are on them. That before you get into anything is huge pressure. Added to that, on a more kind of prosaic and less serious level, Queiroz is a manager who, when he works with teams, his defensive work is so diligent. It's really based on drilling. So I interviewed Simon Godos, the Brentford player, before the tournament, and he was talking about how Queiroz was every day he was sending him videos of what he wanted to do, and obviously he was doing this with the whole squad. But that can only go so far. And Queiroz, a manager who really needs this sort of time to drill a defensive shape. Like there's so many stories say when he drilled the Manchester United team before they played Barcelona in 2008 and it came off, they managed to shuttle Messi. He did the same in 2014 with Messi with a previous Iran side in the World Cup, and it almost worked. He's only had 7 days with this squad, and obviously there's been so much swirling around, and it's why you could see it in the game. Obviously they're playing one of the best attacks. It's like one of the most talented attacks in the tournament in England, but it was the way they didn't have the conviction you'd associate with a Queiroz team. They didn't kind of marshal space in the same way, and I think there's opportunity here for Wales. I suppose just because maybe Wales have. It's obviously not the Wales of 2016, and you would think that Iran there might be some rallying effect, and obviously Queiroz has a bit more time as well. So I'm thinking a Wales win, but not necessarily a healthy one. So I saw the price in this; it's actually quite attractive. Wales under 4.5, which is 2.4.
Yeah, it's a decent boost from perhaps the 2.14. So for those listening on the podcast, Matchbook Insights will have all the lad selections up here. We'll let you decide, and it saves me deciding. I'll sit on the fence, and after time it completely whoever wins. We'll move on to the second game. There is agreement on this game, so we'll get straight into it, and we'll fly through the next few games. It's hard not to really delve into these games, but there's so many to cover. It's Qatar versus Senegal. We'll take a look at the betting currently on matchbook.com. Qatar can be backed at 6.4. Senegal are the 1.67 favourites. The draw is available at 3.9. Both teams to score. No is favoured once again in this market at 1.68. Qatar are getting a 3/4 of a goal head start on the Asian handicap line, and the goal line is in and around the 2.5 mark currently. We'll go to you on this one, Adrian. You're liking Senegal with an unders play perhaps, so maybe a bit of caution here.
Yeah, the African sides aren't scoring goals, are they? That's an issue. But if there's a team that you should be able to score against, you would imagine it'd be Qatar. They were awful, weren't they? Absolutely shocking in that first game. And I think there's another factor at play here, a little bit like Iran, but for Qatar, it's we perceived the fact that they'd been together for 3 months or whatnot as a huge positive because they'd got the club side mentality. They're all together as a group. But the problem with that is that they've lacked competitive football. They haven't had it. They haven't played in the Qatari league for months. They've just been playing the odd friendly here and there, and it's different, really, really different. So for me, they looked rusty. They lacked the sharpness that you would expect of a group of players that are match ready. It was all a little bit too much for them, maybe emotionally as well with the pressure. So I see their approach as a huge negative now, having watched that first game. I'd imagine there'll be an improvement. They won't be as nervous, and they might have a little bit more joy against Senegal. But Senegal are, I would say, a similar level team to Ecuador. Difficult to pick between those two based on what we've seen so far. Obviously, they kept Netherlands at bay for much of that game. Probably started the brighter. The game deteriorated, as did they, and they ended up losing 2-0. But But Senegal aren't a poor side. They still had 15 shots against Holland. If they can get 15 against Holland, how many are going to rack up against this Qatar side? I think they could almost get to double, certainly 20, 25. So, yeah, for that reason, I think that Senegal have got a great chance of winning this. They have to win this. They know that. And yeah, having watched the two teams, they're a level above Qatar. So yeah, Senegal for me, and under 4.5 goals would be my selection. I think it's a really strong one personally. I don't see a thrilling game, but surely they've got enough at 1.87 to do the job here.
Yeah, Miguel, you're under similar lines with the match results. Senegal, you're pairing it with over 1.5 goals, and I guess the kind of subplot of this. The subplot of this World Cup, one of the subplots is Saudi Arabia coming into Qatar doing so well, and Qatar being disappointing in that opening game as well.
Sorry, I just had a colleague slap me in the back there as I was walking around. So Qatar, I mean, I must say, as bad as Iran were, there was, I mean, you could see there's a team whereas Qatar, like, I was at the opening game and they were absolutely shocking. They were the worst teams I've ever seen live at a World Cup. I don't think it's any exaggeration. There were elements of it you did wonder whether they're a proper football team. Like, it was that bad. The goalkeeper was making some of the decisions. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And it was quite a weird game in the sense. It was almost like they were so bad that it was like Ecuador didn't know how to react to it, because it was kind of a weirdly patternless game. Like every so often, Ecuador would just launch an attack and it would cause absolute chaos. You can't even say whether there'd be much of a rallying response. But I suppose the one thing with Senegal is you can't get away from that. This injury is pretty much dominating their entire campaign, which is the loss of Sadio Mane. Because I think had they had Mane, they would have given the Dutch a proper game, could have beaten them. But without him, it feels like this pattern is going to play out again and again. So I think they should have too much quality for this Qatar. It might be a more frustrating game than they should have. I think like if Mane was here, I'd be very confident in predicting a really comfortable Senegal win. So for the moment, I'm going for Senegal over 1.5, which is a 2.28, which is slightly more generous than the other. But I mean, they should probably, given how poor Qatar were at the back, and even say it's set pieces. I mean, if you've got Koulibaly aiming from a set piece, he can cause havoc against that goalkeeper. So yeah, I think they should get at least 2.
Yeah, that's Senegal to win and over 1.5 goals. Mark at 2.28. Mark, for you, we did try to warn Miguel, I guess. Like we saw Ireland play Qatar twice, and they were absolutely brutal. Ireland were scoring 4 goals, I think, in the Aviva. So we did try and warn Miguel as best we could, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, after Miguel's comments today on the World Cup and being a venue in Qatar, and his comments on the national football team, hopefully he'll still be alive and available next time we record. Because,
please God.
But not much I can really add to what the guys have already said. To be fair, on Senegal, I thought they didn't do too much wrong really against the Dutch. I thought they were the better team for at least the first hour or 75 minutes. Depay possibly changes the game for Holland there, and they lacked a bit of inspiration, a bit of leadership from Mane in forward areas, but I thought they attacked pretty well, and they've got individual quality in that squad. They should be good enough to kind of open a chance or two and take them against this Qatari side. Just worth noting that Mendy was probably questionable or at fault for both goals, or if not one of them, against Holland. There's talk that he might be dropped now, and 3 or 4 other players in the Senegalese squad who might be sort of losing their place. So interesting to see the team set up when they do come in. It's not like Aliou Cissé to make such drastic changes, particularly after just one game. But there is a feeling in Senegal that Mendy hasn't been good for them for a while, and Chelsea obviously know that too as well. So might be an opportunity for QPR stopper Seny Dieng, which would be nice to see. But I'm in Adrian's camp here. Obviously, massive match for both. They both need to win. They both need the result. So in theory, you could look towards a goal-based bet here. But I just can't back either team to sort of run up a cricket score on either team. So it makes sense to combine it with unders. Yeah, absolutely. So that's Senegal under 4.5 goals from Mark and Adrian, 1.87. Miguel's going for Senegal and over 1.5 at 2.28. We'll move on to the third game that we have currently, which is Netherlands versus Ecuador, 4 o'clock kickoff on Friday afternoon. Big game here as well. So the Netherlands can be backed at 1.81. Ecuador available at 9-2 or 5.5 on the Matchbook Exchange, and the draws available at 11-4 or 3.75.
Both teams to score no is favoured at 1.9. The handicap line sees Ecuador get a 3-quarter goal head start at 1.94, and the goal line again is in around 2.5. Miguel, we'll move over to you on this one. You're looking at both teams to score no, so maybe a cagey game given the team's opening victories.
Yeah, and I mean, you only have to look even beyond the fact that Ecuador didn't score as many as they could have against Qatar. There's obviously this prior record that we refer to, which is a series of blanks. So I think this is just going to be a low-scoring game. I'd probably fancy the Dutch to win it, but I mean, I'd say maybe kind of 1-0, 2-0. But like, it's going to be yet another low-scoring game. It's going to be interesting with this tournament in that it's basically been wild swings, and like the goal average is actually quite high. Even though the quantity of low-scoring games and nil is also high. And I think this could be one of the latter, with the Dutch just about shading it. But yeah, I think both teams to score no is pretty safe here. The Dutch are going to be hard to get at, I think.
Yeah, and on that subject, Mark, you're looking at the match odds here. And look, when you keep it simple, I think in betting, like the Switzerland one just there in this morning, you tend to come good, Mark. So you're going for Netherlands here on the match odds at 1.86.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be my strongest play, but it's just purely a price play, actually. Netherlands went off at 1.66 against Senegal in the opener, and that was without Memphis Depay. Now, Senegal started the competition as second favourites to qualify behind the Dutch from this group, and now we've got Netherlands, who were trading at 1.86. It's been chipped into 1.8, but we're expecting Depay to start now after playing, a half-hour cameo in the first game, which improves them. De Ligt was a surprise inclusion from the off. He looked out of sorts, looked very gettable. So I'd be surprised if Timber doesn't come back in. He has been the regular centre-half alongside Van Dijk and Ake as well. So I think the Dutch will be stronger in both boxes. And I thought, despite being the second best team in that match against Senegal, I thought they handled themselves pretty well, took their opportunities when they came, really. And I think it's worth bearing in mind that match came, basically a week after domestic seasons concluded. Holland, more so than most teams, were kind of handicapped by the really quick turnaround. So, with Depay back in the team, I'm expecting them to be better, yet the market thinks they'll be worse against an Ecuador side who we didn't learn a huge amount about against Qatar because they were so awful and they scored so early and the game was done and dusted by half-time. They did only have 4 shots outside of the penalty and Enner Valencia's second goal as well, which was quite surprising considering how much they dominated that match. But I think we talked about it before match day 1 as well. Ecuador's record outside of Quito, where they have the altitude advantage during World Cup qualifying, isn't great. They won twice away from home during qualification, one of which was when they were playing 10 men for 80 minutes. They are well set up. They are sort of well coached, and they're kind of set up to cause big teams problems. But I just think the Dutch should be better for the run out after Senegal, better for having Depay back as well. Yet the price has gone the other way. So yeah, it's just a price play, really. It's not my strongest play by any stretch, but I think when you get Netherlands at 1.8 or above against the likes of Ecuador, I think it's a fair play.
Does look quite big. Adrian, very briefly on the draw, you just want to give it a mention, not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm not going to do a no bet here. I'll step aside. But I think the draw is a runner at 3.75. In the context of the group, it wouldn't be a shocking result for either. I think with Netherlands in particular, with Qatar to come, pretty much a guaranteed 3 points. I think that they know a draw should probably secure top spot in the table. So yeah, I'm not sure how hard they'll push here. And Ecuador do have 7 clean sheets in a row. I mean, it's not a team that let in goals. So I think it's going to be hard for, and this is why Mig's bet is a decent shout. They're solid. So I could see a 0-0 or even a 1-1 here. But I'm not going to make it an official bet.
Yeah, I guess maybe the game state is perhaps why we're getting artificially big price on the Netherlands, perhaps. So yeah, they're the guys' bets. And we'll move on to the 4th game on Friday. This is Friday night, so England fans will be well oiled at this point, I guess, if they've started at 10 a.m. on the football. It's a long road, trust me, to 7 o'clock. We'll take a look at the betting. It's England 1.6, the USA 6.6. Big price. Draw available at 4.3. Both teams to score yes, no. Pretty 50-50 there in that market. And the handicap Asian line sees the US get a 1-goal head start at 1.93. And the goal line is 2.5. So, Mark, back to you. I think you're going for a standard podcast bet here. And maybe sometimes keep it simple and bring back the Chelsea bets and the Manchester City bets, perhaps. And England and under 4.5 goals. Maybe not the Man City bets.
Do you know what? I'm very, very close to changing my best bet on this game because I think the England prices are attractive as they are. So there's many different ways you can try and play this game and get a decent price. England to win an under 4.5 at 1.95 does appeal to me. I don't think it'll be a demolition job as we saw against Iran, but just looking again, you can get England -3/4 on the handicap at 1.75, which pays out even if they win 1-0. It's only a half stakes win, but it's a winner, which just kind of gets even more correct scores. Basically, on your side, any correct score, you get paid out really if England win, which is really attractive, really. So Southgate was obviously rewarded for his more adventurous 11, more adventurous approach against Iran. Eager to see how he tackles this match, because it will be a very different tactical battle. We know Kane is fit and available, which is a big boost. But as we saw against Wales, the American strength is in the midfield three and it's in the fullbacks. They've got huge energy, huge work rate, and they really target those kind of battlefields, and they will press England and make life uncomfortable, aim to impose themselves as much as they can. Wales didn't deal with it too well in the first half. At least they went long in the second half. But I think England do have that quality to beat the press. Perhaps not in defensive areas. I'd be a little bit uncomfortable if they started dilly-dallying with the ball at the back, because America probably will try and press them high and put them under pressure. But I think certainly in that midfield area, they're good enough to bypass. And there's obviously huge amounts of quality in the final third to make their pressure and territory pay. So as I said pre-tournament, I don't really rate the Americans. And as Adrian alluded to as well in the Wales game, despite sort of dominating that first half, they didn't create hardly anything really. There's plenty of possible moments, but their final ball or their final finish was often quite poor. So obviously the onus is on them to come out and try and get a result, but I just think England will be too good for them. And whilst on paper it looks like a potential banana skin, I think England for quite a while now have been quite good at dispatching the lesser lights. So there's many ways you can try and play this game, but I think the guys have got alternative options. I'm gonna change it just because I think the price is good enough. England -3/4 at 1.75. Basically, we're making money if England win.
Yeah, and Miguel and Mark mentioned different ways in here. You've gone for England and over 2.5 goals at 2.6.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the day at the England camp. I think there's a real confidence about where they are now. Certain, and I think it also illustrates. Sorry, I'm in the Stadium Media Centre. It's like a.
This will be followed by a post-match press
it can be like a departure lounge.
which you can take part virtually.
Okay, there we go.
Go on.
Yeah, so I think there is that kind of justified feeling now. The Nations League. Oh my God.
Well, I go to Adrian for 2 seconds. Adrian, England and both teams to score no is your pick here currently.
Yeah, I just think I wasn't that impressed with America. I think the Wales would just pick the wrong team and were overcautious in that first half. Made USA look better than what they were. Well, as soon as they got about them, as soon as they started to play with a bit of aggression and play to their strengths, they were the better team. Just one shot on target from USA, 6 shots overall in that game. That's against Wales. I don't expect them to produce more against England. Josh Sargent up front. I mean, he's the guy you got to worry about. He's decent in the Championship, but I think England should be able to handle it. I really do. I think Pulisic and Weah, pretty tidy players. Anthony Robinson down the left offers plenty. And especially with our fullbacks pushing on, he might have a little bit of joy at times. But yeah, Mark's right. USA central midfield is probably their strength, or it's definitely their strength. Rice and Bellingham, I don't know if there's a better unit than those two. So I think England are as well equipped as anyone to win the engine room battle against the States. And I just think I think it should be a routine win. Less glamorous, less exciting, I think, than the one against Iran. But I'm looking at 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 for England here. So England, I mean, and the boost in the price is great. Mark's right about the options that you've got to bet on England here. But England to win with a clean sheet is 2.74. I mean, in my head, that is the most likely way they'll win the game. So that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, Miguel, very briefly, as Mark touched on, there's a lot of ways into England here.
Yeah, before it was loudly interrupted. I mean, they ultimately feel that they're justified in thinking that the form of this year was irrelevant. This is the reality, the World Cup. There's a confidence about them. And I think when it really comes down to, they've got much more quality than the USA. And I think in a game it's going to be quite open because USA are going to have a go. And I have to say, USA were much better than I anticipated in the game against Wales, at least for the first half. I mean, the second half actually is a concern for them. But it's why I think the safest play here is basically England in over 2.5. I wouldn't have complete confidence that England defence, given how easily Iran got at them. But obviously, I fancy them to outscore USA. So England in over 2.5 at 2.6 seems quite generous.
Yeah, there's some, as we all touched on here, there's plenty of ways pro England angles. If you want to have them written out for you just before the game as well, check out Matchbook Insights. So there's a few angles as I touched on there. We'll move on to Saturday's game, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. This is a brilliant day of football now, I have to say. There'll be people who've had to sit through work the whole week, be patient, and finally get their 4 games in a day on a weekend. It's Tunisia versus Australia. Maybe not a classic to open up. Sorry, I was building that up too much, and then I looked at the fixture in front of me. But Tunisia are available to back on the Matchbook Exchange at 2.22, Australia 3.95, and the draws available at 3.35. Both teams to score no is favoured in that market, 1.86. Australia can be backed at a quarter of a goal head start at 2.1, and the total is 2.25 goals, and that's shaded towards the under here. Adrian, I touched on this is a great segue by me now, unintentionally perhaps, that I touched on this game might not be very exciting, and you're going for the unders here.
Yeah, I think so. Fuming at Australia. I was convinced France would win with a clean sheet in that game, and pretty much they didn't offer much, did they? They were outclassed, Australia, but they bloomin' scored. That wound me up a little bit, but well done to them. Yeah, I think this game, I would lean towards Tunisia just. I thought they were quite good, actually, in their game against Denmark. They were really aggressive, weren't they? Very motivated and pretty intense about what they were doing. And that means against Australia, which is kind of one of the main assets that Australia have, I think that they'll fight fire with fire. I wouldn't be surprised to see a red card in this game. But yeah, I think that Tunisia gave pretty good account of themselves against Denmark. They had 13 shots in the game, albeit only one of them was on target, but they had a bit of intent about them. They don't concede many. Obviously, Denmark couldn't break them down. They've let in 8 goals in 14 matches in 2022, Tunisia. And 5 of those 8 were in one game against Brazil. So they are a team that are solid, really solid. And I don't think Australia are very good going forward. So I think Tunisia keep a clean sheet here. Yeah, and Australia, well, I don't think, they're not a great side. I don't think Tunisia are going to be full of goals. So I think a low-scoring win for Tunisia is favourite. The Aussies, I think they had 4 shots to France's 23. Did okay, but really, they're not great. So yeah, I'm going to go with under 2.25 goals here. Can't quite get under 2.5 goals with the line at sort of under or over 1.7. So we'll go 1.89 under 2.25. I think there'll be 1 or 2 goals max here.
Yeah, Miguel, as someone who has sat through 3 out of 4 games being 0-0, I think I can sense a 0-0 draw now, and this one screams 0-0 to me, and it's kind of on a similar line to your bet, which is both teams to score now.
The only thing that I would agree with you, but the only thing is I think that obviously both sides will pin this as if they're going to get through the group, this is the one they need to win. So while Tunisia are generally quite a defensive side, and for a long time been associated with that approach of kind of low block, difficult to open, they will have to come forward at some point in this game. And that's, I mean, I would be leaning towards a 1-0 either side almost. I think something will give. But yeah, definitely low scoring. So I'm going on the other side, which is both teams score no.
Yeah, that's both teams
worth noting,
no,
Dan, that this match, before the tournament started, Australia were favourites to win this game. So the market has gone enormously in Tunisia's favour, and I think most people, when they saw the sort of match odds before the tournament started, and sort of questioned why Australia deserved to be favourites in what is a very sort of even battle. But now the market seems to have gone almost too far in Tunisia's favour. But yeah, they were very good against Denmark, it should be said. And
very quickly, Mark, are you a look ahead better? Did you get some of that on Tunisia or?
I only had a little bit. I had Tunisia draw no bet because, anything, as we've seen with most of these teams, what you've seen in the last year or so compared to what they've shown up in the first match can be very, very different and difficult. And so, yeah, well, it was one of the games I was kind of targeting coming into this, and I couldn't believe the price and how the market had moved so much in just a space of a few days.
Yeah, so it's a no bet for Mark. You don't have to have a bet on any game. And Mark and Adrian are sitting out the next game. So we'll cover this briefly enough. It's Saturday lunchtime. Poland at home to Saudi Arabia. We'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. Miguel's rethinking his play now, knowing that Adrian and Mark aren't betting on this game. But we'll have a look. Poland 1.81, Saudi Arabia 5.3. The draws available at 3.8. Both teams to score no is favoured 1.9. in that market. The handicap line sees Saudi Arabia get a 3/4 goal head start at around 10-11 or 1.91, and the total is 2.25 goals. So, Miguel, you've seen Saudi Arabia live. You're expecting goals. At least it's a small angle into this game.
Yeah, and I think I was almost as stunned as Argentina were by just the extent of their high line. And I think that's going to completely dictate this game, which is why it's going to be another open game. I mean, for all that result was a shock, and for all Saudi Arabia deserve credit for the way they went about it. In play in the first half, it's still 4-0. Again, it's very fractional decisions. That on another day that can go against you. And I mean, with Lewandowski there, it's just what and given that Poland themselves are quite fragile. I think there'll be a lot of goals in this, but because there's a few uncertainties about it, I think it's safer as both teams to score.
Yeah, Saturday lunchtime, both teams to score, yes, 2.02, and it's a massive game for both sides. As Miguel touched on, game state there will be huge. Both teams will be going for the win, so we'll lock that in as a bet, and we'll go quickly on to our next game, which is Saturday, 4 o'clock. This is France versus Denmark. This was penciled in as the group decider, but after Denmark's result, perhaps Denmark will be looking more at qualifying. We'll take a look at the betting. France can be available to back at 1.89. Denmark are 4.9. The draw is available at 3.65. Both teams to score no is favoured again at 1.88. The Asian handicap line sees Denmark at half a goal start at a good price of 2.1, and the total is 2.25. Mark, we'll hand over to you. One of our anti-post picks were Denmark to top the group. I guess I was a little bit disappointed. They seemed very slow in their build-up play, but this game maybe sets up a little bit better for them.
Yeah, I was desperately disappointed with them, at least for the first hour or so. I don't know if they were spooked or surprised by Tunisia's proactive approach, but possibly both. But it took them a long, long time to react and try and stamp their authority on that game. They dominated possession, but in open play, they were very bland, offered very little of note. And if you look at the first hour, they were outshot 13-3 by Tunisia, who pressed them and turned possession over and had a bit of substance to them going forward. And the Danes definitely didn't. I rate Kasper Hjulmand as a smart tactician. Thought it took him quite a while to change the game in Denmark's favour. They eventually did go to a back four, brought on Cornelius, and just went direct, really. And it did change the game in their favour. Tunisia didn't have another shot in the match after those changes. But if you look at the underlying numbers, almost 90% of Denmark's total expected goals figure came from dead ball situations against Tunisia. That's not great, and it's very unlike Denmark. They have been quite a good team to watch over the past couple of years because of the variety and adaptability of their attack. Everything went through Joachim Mæhle. He was, quite comfortably kind of marked out of the game. Christian Eriksen wasn't as effective or influential as he possibly can be. So, expecting more from Denmark for sure. Big pressure on them too, coming into this match against a French team who I think some of the praise has been a bit overboard in their favour because they've destroyed Australia, who, as we know, are one of the worst teams in the competitions. They started very sloppily, obviously grew into the game, and player for player, they're in a different stratosphere to Australia. So I didn't learn a huge amount from it, bar really, but the injury to Hernandez and seeing his brother Teo come on is probably a bonus, really, because it makes that left-hand side such a threat with him bombing on and Mbappe as well. You've got Dembele fit and playing well on the opposite side too. So there's real dynamism to that attack. And Giroud obviously scoring goals too. So there's a lot to like about France going forward. I still have concerns about that midfield, Tchouameni and Rabiot, as well as the centre of defence. I think there's always a mistake in Konate and Upamecano right now. So they're players who possibly could be bullied despite their stature. Interested to see how Denmark approach this game, which team they do select. But they've obviously had the number of France twice this year already in the Nations League, however much you want to read into that. So I was very tempted, and still I'm very tempted to get Denmark on side with a 3/4 goal handicap start, which means even if they lose by exactly 1 goal, we only lose half of our stake. But I think probably the smarter play is just to oppose a high-scoring game. I don't expect Denmark to really kind of open themselves up too much to this French team because of the threats that the Le Bleu offer in forward areas. But also just disappointed really with Denmark's open play ability really against Tunisia. So it's a tricky one. I still back Denmark in most of the markets. I think France are heavily sort of favoured, but I'm expecting better, as I am from most of these big teams who possibly underwhelmed in the first round of fixtures. And I'm kind of holding fire on my opinion on France being potential winners of the competition just because they blitzed Australia. Yeah,
and Adrian, for you, you're in agreement. I guess the game stake could be interesting here. If Tunisia do get that win against Australia, perhaps Denmark will be like, well, minimum point, but we might have to maybe at some point try and see, can we sneak a win here?
Yeah, it's a good shout. Yeah, depending what happens there, it might swing things tactically a different way. But yeah, to back up what Mark said there, really, France obviously battered Australia, but if you look at their previous 5 games, I think all of them went under 2.5 goals. For Denmark, 4 of their last 5 games have gone under 2.5 goals. So neither of these two sides are involved in that many thrillers, certainly not recently. So that might count for something. They did draw 0-0 against each other at the last World Cup finals as well in 2018. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot in it. I think that out wide France are great. Just love Mbappe and Dembele and the fullbacks as well around them. But I think in central midfield, the jury's definitely out on Rabiot and Shramey. I'm not sure they provide that much control. And I think Denmark will hold their own in that part of the field, which in turn should mean it's a really competitive match. So yeah, I see a low-scoring one. 0-0, 1-0, 1-0 either way. That's how I see this one playing out.
And Miguel, broad agreement with the guys, but you are liking France in the match odds.
Well, I mean, I take everything they said. I think a lot of the first few days are dictated by the abrupt start of the tournament and how little time teams have had. So I think that's why we're seeing some surprises, maybe some relatively unconvincing performances. With France, I think what was most striking was, they were expressing themselves against Australia. It was that easy for them. But that also fed into a certain kind of casuality, which actually reminded me of Euro 2020, and it's a bit of a concern. Maybe the midfield feeds into that. But I think, again, they will grow as the tournament goes on. Deschamps is also good at rallying a spirit from everything you hear. It's one of the things they laud him about most, as well as what is usually a good structure. And I mean, my thinking is immediately 1-0 France. But I'm just to kind of boost it a bit, I'm going with France under 2.5. I think got too much quality for Denmark, and also I know he missed a sitter, but Mbappe looks in the mood as well.
He does, and Giroud in there with a small shout on the pod to Mark O'Hare in terms of getting Giroud in way before that Benzema. I have a very excited household who are all on Giroud at fancy prices here, top goal scorer. So we're getting rather excited anytime he gets.
Can he still play 3 games a week? I don't know.
Probably not, Adrian. No, we're happy with our bet though. That there's a good comment in there we'll get to the end from Mark. Any other comments, do throw them into the guys before we get going. So we'll move into our final game, which is Argentina versus Mexico. Saturday night, to be honest, this is a huge game. Both Saturday and Sunday late kickoffs are massive games. We'll take a look at the betting. Argentina 1.61 despite their opening day defeat. Mexico can be back to 6.8. The draw is available at 4.1. Both teams to score no, once again, favored in that market at 1.8. You've got Mexico getting a 1-goal head start at 1.87, and the current total line we have is 2.5. Adrian, we'll go over to you on this one. I guess there's an angle in here, perhaps that you might get a slightly bigger price in Argentina and an overs play.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Argentina and over 1.5 goals would be my pick here. I just think they have to react, don't they? They have to come out swinging here. They'll have been stunned by what happened against Saudi Arabia, but Mig touched on it a moment or two ago. They could have been 4-0 up at half time easily in that game. As they sort of did crumble. They sort of ran out of ideas, but they've still got Messi. They've still got Lautaro Martinez. They've still got a lot of quality there, and I think that they are motivated Argentina. And you could question how motivated they were for that Saudi game. Maybe they just thought they had to turn up. I don't know. I do see a reaction. Mexico better going forward, I think, than they are at the back. So yeah, I would expect Argentina to score at least 2 goals in this game, which gets us over that 1.5, and I would expect them to win it as well. History does favour Argentina as well. Mexico have only beaten Argentina once in their history, and Argentina have won 7 of their last 8 against Mexico. So yeah, if you look back at the history books, which doesn't always mean much, but sometimes it counts for something psychologically, this is a game Argentina turn up in and roll over the Mexicans, and I think they will. But I could easily see both teams scoring. Looking at the way Argentina defended, I mean, Romero wasn't great, was he? Yeah, Argentina to win and over 1.5.
Yeah, good segue to you, Miguel, on the both teams to score angle. I'm finding this price pretty big. You're going for Argentina and both teams to score currently at 4.1.
Yeah, I was surprised at that. I mean, I completely agree with Adrian there. I think evidently Argentina are for basically well over a decade have been governed by kind of a strange neurosis with international tournaments, almost kind of are a team dictated by the kind of the vibe or form drawn more than anyone. And you can even see the reaction suddenly after finally losing a game after 36 unbeaten. But equally, they're one of the few sides they've got a psychological hold over are Mexico. So I think there will be a response just because the nature of that game on Tuesday. But equally, I think Messi will rise to it. He from everything you hear from the camp, he gave a speech on the bus afterwards. He was the first to speak. Again, it was kind of a rousing speech to immediately forget about it. I think he will respond. So I think they could be good going forward and have a point to prove. But then, yeah, as Adrian mentioned there, Romero doesn't look fully fit. They've got Otamendi beside him. They don't fully feel like they've got the kind of the balance of that midfield defense right. And they never had that Saudi game under control. But I think they'll have too much for Mexico and too much impetus about them as well.
Yeah, it's maybe an interest bet for those playing late on Saturday. It's Argentina both needs to score at around 3-1 currently on Matchbook, and those markets are very heavily competitively priced on Matchbook. Well, we're checking out, particularly as we always mention on the podcast, given the nature of the exchange, maybe 20-30 minutes out from a game. So we'll save Mark's bet there because it will be his best bet, and we'll move on to the long shot section. And Mark, go over to you. I do sort of like this play because again, game state, it could depend on what Tunisia do, but even if they win, I guess Denmark will fancy a draw could be enough here. So your correct score is France 1, Denmark 1, 7.6.
Yeah, I mean, I've backed in this segment England to beat Iran 1-0 and Spain to beat Costa Rica 1-0. So I was only about 6 goals off in both matches.
Yes, fair,
so
yeah. Lay.
If you want to take the 1-1 and turn it into a 4-4 draw instead, probably more accurate. So, yeah, I mean, I think the markets have overreacted a little bit in areas to one result, one match so far. And I don't think Denmark suddenly are a bad team overnight because they failed to fire against Tunisia. I think they're more than good enough to give France a game, as they've proven twice already this year. Are they good enough to get the 3 points? We'll have to wait and see. But I still have my doubts over the French team, and I think Denmark can at least pinch at least a point from this match too. So the 1-1 correct score felt like the most likely scenario here. But yeah, 7.6 is a fair enough price for what it tends to be one of the most popular correct scores in world football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I part of me, given the group state, Adrian, is tempted to double this up with your correct score and really celebrate on Saturday. Tunisia 1, Australia 0, 7.8. That appeals to me too, I have to say. Yeah,
it just stands out. I see this as being a low-scoring game, but Tunisia, based on what I've seen and the form books leading into the tournament, I would say have the edge over Australia, who will be delighted, I think, to have scored a goal against France, but that might be the end of it in terms of their goal output this tournament, in my opinion. So yeah, I can't see them scoring again, Australia, and I can see Tunisia nicking it. But yeah, it's because they played very, very well against Denmark, had a lot of efforts on goal, but were a touch wayward. Just need one to go in here, and I think they'll get the job done. So yeah, Tunisia 1, Australia 0. You can sort of I can picture it in my head, but let's see if reality, is different.
And another scoreline. Is this just too easy? This section, Miguel? Netherlands 1, Ecuador 0, 7.4. Again, I mean, it feels to me too.
Yeah, it just screams it, doesn't it? It was immediately what I thought when I saw it. I almost went for it above, but yeah, for me, it's the obvious choice. And just with the way Netherlands play, with Ecuador's recent results, with how relatively toothless they were against a team as bad as Qatar, and that's just it really stands out.
So that's Netherlands 1, Ecuador 0, 7.4 currently. Mark, we'll hand over to you because we skipped your bet in the Argentina game. This is Mark's best bet over Friday and Saturday. So it's Argentina minus 3/4 of a goal on the Asian handicap 9, 1.78. And reminder for new customers, if you haven't signed up, you can double this odds in cash up to £50, and that would give you odds of 3.56.
Yeah, it's effectively a bet on Argentina to win their game against Mexico. If they win by 2 or more goals, we get a full stakes payout. If they win by exactly 1, we get a half stakes winner, but a winner nonetheless. And Argentina have been heavily criticised by media back home as well as supporters over here for their performance against Saudi Arabia. I didn't think it was a huge amount wrong with it for the first 45 minutes, and a very, very, very marginal and debatable offside decision against Lautaro. didn't go their way. Could have been 2-0 and game over, really. But that's football for you. That's why we love it. Saudi scored from 2 goals from 3 shots, none of which were particularly standout moments or opportunities. And I just think, whilst people have been sort of critical of the individuals in the Argentinian team and squad, I think it's much more about the collective. And that's the main strength of Argentina under Lionel Scaloni, is they have come together. They have formed a very solid unit, which is working to effectively service an exciting front three, which is led by Messi. You've got Di Maria, and you got Lautaro. And I think, like many of the big teams who possibly underwhelmed in the first round of fixtures, they should be better for the run out. And I think they'll be able to sort of stamp their authority on this game, because I don't rate Mexico. I've said that pre-tournament. They hogged the ball. They've got nothing really going for them in forward areas without Corona, who's out of the competition through injury. Jimenez, obviously, only played a fleeting role off the bench. And it's all kind of down on Lozano to really sort of conjure up moments of magic. And outside of that, they're pretty bland. And I think, they may have shaded things against Poland, but Poland just seemed intense on lobbing the ball up long to Lewandowski and expecting him to control it and pull off some sort of moment of magic. And I think they'll probably meet their sort of adversaries in this match, because I think Argentina are much better than obviously Poland are. And I just think the price is appealing enough too. Backing Argentina to be paid out for an Argentinian win at 1.78 or better is very much appealing to me.
Yeah, and those new to maybe perhaps bet on the exchange or the Asian handicap line, our markets on Matchbook are very competitively priced there as well. And it's a good in. It kind of makes it picks the goal line for you. And if Asian handicap is a good alternative way of betting as opposed to the match odds. Miguel, England and over 2.5 goals does appeal to me here. It's 2.6, and that's your best bet.
Yeah, I just think the way England have set up is it's not the kind of rigid approach that Southgate had in Euro 2020. The games were open. The defence looks vulnerable, but they've still got so much quality going forward, which means that I think they could be, in contrast to the kind of tournament as a whole and some of these 1-0s we're talking about, England's games could be quite high scoring, with that kind of accentuated here because USA, as we saw against Wales, are willing to have a go.
Yeah, and Adrian, over to you for your best bet. Spoiler alert, Mark O'Hare really wanted this one as well, so that's definitely great minds, etc. As I said to you earlier.
Yeah, I stole this one. I held him off. He held him off.
He was coming. You were first.
Yeah, said no, you're not having this one. But the anyone that saw Qatar in that opening game would back them to lose this game. Senegal were pretty good. In a fairly bad game against Holland. I thought they held their own. Considering Mane wasn't there, I thought Ismail Assar looked quite bright at times, and surely they've got enough to score 1 or 2 goals against a Qatar side that I can't see causing them too many problems. They look rusty. They've not had competitive action, the players, for a long time, because they've been in camp. They've just been playing friendlies. They haven't played domestically where points matter, and I think that has impacted on them, and I don't think they're in the right shape, Qatar, to be competitive. So yeah, Senegal for sure have got to win this game. I mean, if they don't, it's criminal, and I wouldn't expect it to be high scoring. So yeah, let's go with Senegal and under 4.5.
Yeah, and you can find that in the other markets on Matchbook. Very popular, particularly on this podcast. Last thing before we go, we have a comment in here, Mark, I wanted to bring up, mainly because I wanted to give you kudos, because given it was the last Premier League show, I don't think you got the proper kudos. You called Leeds halftime, Spurs full time at 26.0. You joked that we're not putting it up as an official bet, but of course I took the joke. I never really put it up, and obviously it came through. And it sounds like a couple of people have got on. I'll notice yours truly didn't. So tell us if there's another one out there for maybe perhaps someone like myself to get on as small stakes.
Yeah, it's not something I'd force a bet from, but what we've seen it happen already a couple of times in this competition, haven't we? And I had a very quick look after I saw the comment come through at the upcoming games, and there's a team who started superbly last night, didn't get the rewards that their form or their performance probably deserved, and then wilted a little bit as they tired. Canada play Croatia in the next round of fixtures. If they kind of attack the games with the same sort of menace and actually get a goal, you can absolutely see that, because Croatia aren't a kind of team who will sort of panic or particularly energetic themselves. They'll play their way into a match, and it's 30-1 for a sort of flip flop of Canada to lead at half time and Croatia to win the game. But it's quite a tricky one to sort of nail. But that seems more legitimate than most, I think, for the second round of group games.
Definitely.
No, I'm sold, Mark, to be honest. John Herman, we all saw a speech at the end saying F Croatia, we're going to F Croatia. Maybe they will at half time, and eventually they'll they'll give up on full time. So yeah, that's one to promise. Maybe if it goes well and it's a close one, we'll get that in for maybe a little bonus section at the end. Mark's halftime, full time shouts perhaps, which are 1-0 so far this season. My thanks to Adrian and Mark. My thanks to Miguel for joining us from Qatar. All bets will be available on Matchbook Insights. We'll be back recording tomorrow to cover all the Sunday and Monday games, and then be back next week. We will have every game covered. Just keep an eye on the Matchbook social channels, and if you are listening to the podcast feed, keep an eye on your podcast feeds. Those episodes will be coming regularly enough. If other than that, enjoy the football. We'll chat to you tomorrow. Bye bye.